Badger fans, we're going to play a game of what do we know about this team? What do we think we know about this team? And what do we got no clue at all about? Locked On Badgers, let's go.
You are Locked On Badgers, your daily podcast on the Wisconsin Badgers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Badger fans? Welcome to Locked On Badgers, your team every single day. I'm here with my great friend, Rajiv. We're going to talk a little bit about what do we know about this team. Through 3 weeks, I think we can draw some conclusions. What do we think we know, and what do we frankly have no idea? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial NFL Sunday ticket from YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Rajiv, why don't we just go back and forth on this one? Let's start with you. What's the first thing you know about this team? You are dead certain about at this point.
Yeah, we do not have the defensive line to hold up in the conference in any way in relation to what we used to look like in this conference. And even really just hold up at all. To be a team that you have confidence in, that when it's, you need one stop to have a chance to get the ball back and they're going to run the ball 3 downs and they can't get 10 yards. I have zero confidence that we're going to stop that. I do have confidence that we're going to be a defense that won't allow a ton of points. There's some confidence in it, but our ability to have a defensive line that we all hoped coming into the season, maybe we could have this with some of the new guys. We don't have it, and we're not going to have it this year. And that is something that I think we all know, no matter what you feel about this team.
Yeah, that's the first thing I wrote down as well. And listen, you hate to. I wish it wasn't the case, right? Like I'm not here. We're not trying to bash on it, but there's not enough bodies there. There's not enough high impact talent there. I wrote down rushing defense is a problem. Defensive line is a bit of an issue. Then I went down and looked at our schedule. Listen to these yards per carry for some upcoming opponents on our schedule. Iowa, 5.93 yards per carry. Penn State, 5.77 yards per carry. USC, 5.3 yards per carry. Nebraska, 4.94 yards per carry. Oh, but like, not only do I know this is an issue, the rush defense, the being able to be stout up front, like you said, the ability to get a stop on a 3rd and 1, like these are issues. But we're playing 4 or 5 teams that are going to be able to exploit that just based on how they played and based on how they want to play, right? Like you're telling me Iowa, like that's all Iowa wants to do anyway is run the ball. That's something Penn State wants to do with their 2 running backs. So yeah, 100%. I'm not only there with you on that, but I'm also very confident saying that's an issue and that's going to continue to hurt us this year. My next one is, and I moved this, originally this was in the category of things I think, and I moved it into the things I know. I know I need to see more of Tackett and Allegro. I don't think that's a thing for me anymore. I have to see more of them. And there's a bit of a stubbornness at times with this coaching staff that isn't always incorrect. Like there's times stubbornness is useful. Like you don't want coaching staffs that knee jerk and go from one side to the next, right? And don't have conviction in what they're trying to do. But they're just, those guys are just flashing every time they're out there. And it's like at some point, given what we've seen on the rush defense, given what we've seen with some run fits, Chaney's playing a little too much. And it kills me because I'm the biggest Chaney guy out there. I love that dude.
You were all about that guy coming into the year.
100%. Like he's not playing well enough. And sometimes you just got to call a spade. Like I know we need to see more Allegro Tackett, and I'm comfortable saying that at this point.
You're very right. And I would like to say this is now back-to-back seasons of one of us being really high on a middle linebacker that it just didn't work for. Me and Muma and you, Jake Chaney. Those guys just, it wasn't going to work for either of them anytime.
Man. It's like we're cursing these guys.
So first of all, I completely agree with you. I'll talk about those guys in a minute. But yeah, you're right. We know that we need to see them more. For me, it's about the linebackers as well. But what I know is that we don't have the linebacking room didn't take as big of a step as we expected it to take. And I think that there's still some hope there a little bit that they can get better. But with all the talent we brought in from, Pius to Lowry, to even the young guys like Allegro, like we talked about in Tackett Curtis, and steps that we had all taken, we were all so confident. I mean, we did a show about ranking the units on the team, and we talked about how secondary was up there, O-line was up there, and certainly linebackers were up there. On paper, that's what it was. And we know at this point that we're much closer to last year's linebacking crew than we are to what we thought we had in such an uptick from that unit.
That's interesting. Because I actually think this linebacker room is a jump up from last year. I don't think it's quite where we wanted it to be, but I don't think we're close to last year either.
Fair, it's a jump. I definitely agree it's a jump. I just don't think, like, in my head, it was going from the last year. Would you agree was one of the worst units on the team? And we called it. We said it was going to be one of the best units on the team. I think that it's better, but it's not near the top of the position groups. I think is where I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I'm curious what you would have as like the top 3 position groups. And now we're segueing a little bit away.
Yeah.
But if linebacker's not near the top, I think we both agree offensive line is near the top.
Yep, offensive line and secondary, I think is still near the top. Yeah.
But who would you put at number 3 then? Like, because linebackers were in that group, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not disagreeing with you that linebackers maybe aren't there anymore. I still might put them there, but maybe it's more a lack of an obvious candidate because I don't know who else you would put there.
I mean, now that you make me rank them, I think that's fair. I
think linebackers still there, right?
I don't know that they're playing very well, but I would put the running back room ahead of the linebackers.
Okay.
I might even put the receivers ahead of the linebackers because Pauling. Well, no, I can't do that.
No,
Pauling, I've liked what I've seen out of Pauling and Green.
Yeah.
And to an extent, Vinny Anthony. I haven't liked what I've seen out of CJ Williams. I've liked what I've seen out of Tretch from what he's done so far. So I would say maybe those 2 groups ahead of linebackers.
Okay. I don't think it's unfair. I don't think I would have the receivers over the linebackers, and I would struggle honestly to put the running backs over the linebackers. When you look at the numbers and you look at the fumbling issues, like, there's been too many balls on the ground from the running back room. So I don't know. I'm not disagreeing with you. It's hard to find a 3, which is going to lead into my next question. Quite frankly, that's going to lead into my next thing I know. And that is, you don't build a team through a portal. Because and the point of this was, last year we were super hype on the receivers, right? I mean, we talked about it. Listen, it wasn't just us, but we were in that group, deepest maybe receiving room ever. And a lot of that was buoyed by the fact that you brought in a Bryson Green, you brought in a CJ Williams, right? You brought in these talents. This year we were super high on the linebackers. Like, linebackers are going to be one of the best teams on the unit. You brought in 5 transfer linebackers. I think, listen, we're still figuring out the portal era. We're still figuring out what that looks like in team building. We're still trying to understand how that really shapes a roster, how you fit those pieces in. I think coaches are trying to figure it out as well. But that's a couple years in a row. I feel like we have more. I'm not going to say misses or busts in the portal. I'm going to say we have more guys once again this year that it feels like they're not living up to the hype that we had hoped, which is, I think, the same thing last year for a lot of the guys.
The portal is a really interesting discussion. You've got coaches like Dabo Sweeney who doesn't like to use it. You've got people that are using it a ton. And you're right. I mean, I think I agree with you. I would probably put that in the think I know category because I still think but at the end of the day, you're right. I think ultimately that's just not how you want to build it. And we've got to change our approach and really make sure that we can fill the right way. Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I hear you on that. So my other one is, like, I hate to say this because I don't know, but I feel like what I know at this point, Braedyn Locke just isn't him. And I feel like I wanted last year to feel like, okay, we get a transfer quarterback, that's fine. If it goes down, Braedyn Locke can be that guy. And I want to give him a chance. I struggled with the think we know and don't know. I just feel like if after a year, I'm not saying he can't be serviceable. He can be a serviceable game manager for sure. But he is just not the guy that last year I was thinking, boy, in like 3 years, this guy could be really good. That I just feel like isn't there. And I feel like it's in my no category because ultimately that game, I mean, there were some things you're just like, really? Like, it's just not him.
And by not him, you mean he's not the franchise guy, but he can be a serviceable guy.
Correct. He can't be the guy that I thought last year maybe he really could develop into.
Yeah, I mostly agree with you on that. I'm going to get into Locke a little bit in my next category. We're going to take a quick break for our friends of the show. We have new friends today that we want to talk about. An interesting new sponsor over at Roy. This Roy is something that's shaking up the NIL world. I don't know if you've heard about it. It stands for Return on You. It's a new platform that lets you and the fans get involved in NIL like never before, because you're going to be able to make individual contributions to your favorite athletes, your Will Pauling, Tressell Kahuna, whoever it is. By supporting the players directly that can shape rosters, you can help retain talent, keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. And as you know, NIL has changed the game for athletes. Roy changes NIL for the fans. Here's what you can do. This is what's unique about this platform. Directly support players exactly where you want your NIL to go. Roy allows fans to directly back their favorite college athletes. Fans can play a role in shaping the futures of your rosters, your favorite teams, while athletes maximize their name, image, and likeness. The other part about this I really love, Rajiv, exclusive content. When fans contribute to a successful campaign, they receive content created by the athlete for the people in that campaign. So you're donating to your favorite athlete, and then you're getting exclusive content out of it. Roy is incredible. Download Roy, iOS or Android, enter referral code LOCKEDON, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstake to win $5,000 in cash. Visit roy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited. Get the Roy app for iOS and Android. Start making an impact on your favorite team. Again, that's code LOCKEDON. Get off the sidelines into the NIL game with Roy. All right, let's get back into this conversation with Rajiv. Talk about the things we think we know. So we just did the things we know about this team. I'll leave this one off because it dovetails exactly into where you're at. The thing I think I know with Locke is I think he has a hard cap ceiling. So I'm right there with you. Here's the thing. I was talking to Curtis on this game, who comes on the show, and Curtis is great. I love his perspective. And he kind of said, listen, you can't judge it too harshly. It's Alabama. He's coming in. He's a second-string quarterback. He wasn't getting first-string reps. Alabama's a meat grinder. We all know that. All of that is true. All of that is incredibly true. However, some of the mistakes he was making against Bama, I'm sorry, like they weren't caused by an elite defense, like holding the ball for 5-6 seconds in the pocket, getting stripped from behind because you don't have pocket awareness, throwing a slant off a guy's helmet.
Deflections.
Like deflections, like just overthrowing Tretch when he's wide open, throwing that jump off to the penalty out of bounds to Bryson Green. Like those weren't things Alabama was causing because they were so good. Those were just quarterback misses. And I think where I've gotten with Braedyn Locke is I think he can be a serviceable quarterback, much like you. I also think there is a hard cap ceiling there. I just don't think he's quite big enough. I don't think he's quite athletic enough. And I don't think, quite frankly, he's made the jump you expected. But you expected a bigger jump in the offseason. If he's going to be the guy that continues on this trajectory, he feels kind of like the guy he was last year.
Yeah, and I actually had my opinion shifted a little bit as the week progressed a little bit, or as a couple of days from the reaction, because my initial reaction was kind of what Curtis was saying, that it's a tough way. That's a really tough game to come into, just like Iowa was last year for him. Mm-hmm. And I feel like he did get a bit of a raw deal there. But as I've thought about it more, that's why I put that in my note. I'm like, he should have been much more prepared for that. And if that's what the issues were. And the fact that, like, you know, he's staring at his receivers and he's throwing these low passes and the deep ball, like the miss to Tretch, and it's not going to ever be that next level. So I think you're absolutely right with the cap on him. My first one here is, I think I know that we have difference making talent in the youth of this team. I want badly for that to be in the no category, but I just don't know, because I've seen flashes from everyone. I mean, that from Allegro, from Tackett, you know, from Dylan Johnson. But I feel like in Xavier Lucas, I'm not sure. Like, you know, when I say difference making, I mean disruptive defensive players, right? Like people that can actually be the kinds of guys that the players that we've been seeing in the NFL. The Badgers looking great, by the way, to start the NFL season in the linebacking category. Really great. I feel like, I think I know that we've got that kind of potential talent in our youth, and I just don't know for sure.
You know, I really like that one. I almost went with a similar one. I'm with you. I think you mentioned Tackett Allegro, you look at a Lucas. I think you look at some of those defense linemen. You look at a Haywood already getting some reps as a tackle, as a true freshman. You look at the two running backs. I know in practice in Platteville, which isn't everything, but Barry Johnson looked really good. Depends on what you believe in, and maybe your mentor, but you have a young, at least talented quarterback. Grant Steck, I like a lot. I'll drop this one in here. I was going to put this in our subtext chat, but talking to someone connected definitely in the program, Heiberger just continues to come up. And I'll tell you this, he's a guy they're hoping not only gets healthy this year, but they're hoping they can find a role for him this year. Like this is just a recent conversation I had. They're very, very, very high on Heiberger. Like that's a star. And they specifically said, the guy I was talking to said, hoping to get him healthy in an expanded role this year. So I agree with you. I think that's a really good one. The next one, I think I know. And this team is going to need to grind out games. That they're going to have to grind out games if they're going to win games this year. I don't think, as much as I hope, and even with Tyler Van Dyke, as much as I hope there was a better game plan, a different game plan, at some point you are what you are. You are what you've seen. You are what the film says. And I don't think it's going to magically shift. They're going to have to win games by field position. They're going to have to win games by not having more penalties than the opponent, by not muffing punts, by running the ball, by playing time up. They're going to have to win games by playing Paul Chryst ball, which is unbelievable because we fired Paul Chryst to some degree. Not just that, obviously. We're not going to relitigate that, but we're going to have to play Paul Chryst ball to win games, Rajiv. And I think I know that now.
Yeah, I think I'd put that squarely in the no category now that you mentioned it. Really, we definitely know this is going to be a grind, man. Like when you when you can't win in the trenches, especially on the defensive side of the ball, that's going to be a grind because you're going to teams are going to be in every game with you because they're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to hold time of possession. You're not going to be able to run away from teams. So therefore, it's automatically a grind because if you can't stop the run, you really can't run away from teams. So that's that, right? You know that's going to be a thing. And you also just know that Tyler Van Dyke isn't there, and that's automatically a grind for Braedyn Locke. So yeah, you're right about this completely. And it's really in the square no category, I think, for me.
I probably should have put it there. You're right.
For me, what I think this is going to sound weird. I think I know our offense cannot stretch the field and be explosive. I just don't believe that we have that anymore. I don't believe that it's even there. I don't know where it is. I don't know what we thought it was going to be, but I think I know we cannot do that because like we've seen nothing from it. Now that we have Braedyn Locke, it obviously takes away from that. Tyler Van Dyke can stretch the field and throw the ball long. That was always, we were like so pumped about that. I was like, Bryson Green's going to have 50 catches and all this stuff. And he might still, but it's like, we can't be explosive. I feel like I think I know that at this point, and I really wish I didn't.
At some point, we're fans. As I talked about most of fall practice, I was like, this team doesn't really stretch the ball, but like, there's an inherent belief inside of fans that they're like, oh, I'm sure like there's a package or they'll figure it out, or they'll scheme something up, or that we're saving something, or you don't bring Tyler Van Dyke in to not push the ball, or you have more speed now on that side. And at some point, you just got to trust what your eyes are telling you, right? We didn't see a ton of this last year. We saw it struggling in practice. We didn't see it through the first two games. And that quite frankly isn't Braedyn Locke's strength anyway. So I agree with you. Now, I would say this, man, even if that's not going to be a big part of your bag, you have to find a 20 yards. You have to find some chunk plays. Otherwise, well, let me get into my next. I think Longo's coaching for his job, whatever that really looks like. And I felt like this was kind of in an obvious category. I almost put it into the things I know, but I don't want to, like, I'm just never, I struggle when it starts to come to call for people's jobs. Like I have a bit of an issue there, but like he's coaching for his job. He has to be, because if this is the offense we get for the rest of the year, coupled with what you saw last year, coupled with what you've seen other Big Ten teams do in quick turnarounds, the Indianas, the Nebraskas, like you can't, it's not a personal thing against Phil Longo, who's had success in other places. Sometimes things just don't work in certain places, right? Sometimes there's just fits that don't fit. You can't go into year three if this offense doesn't get better in year two and expect something different, because you have 2 years of results at that point. And Wisconsin, here's the other thing. Wisconsin's too good to have that bad of an offense. It's too good of a program. It has too much ability to, we don't have elite playmakers, but like this is, we have better than this, right? So I think he's coaching for his job.
Yeah, I mean the theme of, I feel like, every sport nowadays is, what have you done for me lately? Like, and he's not, there's not a long leash, there's not a time to grow. And when McIntosh brought Luke Fickell in, it was about, the future of the program, building a foundation, a change of culture, but it wasn't this. Like he's not going to to stand for 2, 3, 4 years, where he's not going to get like the kind of leash that Kirk Ferentz's son got in Iowa. Not comparing these two at all. I'm just saying an offense that's not what you plan it to be. You got to make changes, especially if you're not getting the wins. So yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you in that category. I think he's coaching for his job, because who knows? I mean, maybe there's been private conversations like, look, we're going to give you 3 recruiting classes to figure this out. Who knows? My next one is, I think I know. And my last one here, I think I know the brand of football we're going to have to play, obviously, is the old Wisconsin football of running the football, game managing, not really explosive offense, just kind of doing it. I think I know that that's going to work. I think I know that we're going to be able to run the ball somewhat effectively. And the numbers don't always bear that out, which I'm sure you'll mention, but I think that, like, I did see some flashes of a running game against one of the best defenses in America. And I think there's something to be said for that. And yes, I am Mr. Optimistic. Yes, I'm going to find something in every game. And when I look at the Alabama game, I'm like, okay, we ran the ball decent against a really great defense. And yes, the fumbles have to be kind of just put aside, because that can't be expected in every game. But I guess what I think I know is that's the brand of football we're going to have to play. And that's the brand of football we're going to see for the rest of the year. You mentioned grinding out wins. Well, that's how you're going to grind out wins. You're going to run the ball and game manage your way to a bowl.
Yeah, like, I think that's the hope. I agree with you that that's how you have to do it. You mentioned you think it's going to work. Maybe, right? Before the show, we were talking about it. Wisconsin is 16th in the Big Ten in rushing yards per carry. Like, there's only 18 teams. Like, they're 16th in the Big Ten in that category, which, sure, they played a tough team in Alabama. They also played Western Michigan and South Dakota, right? Like, for a team that is going to, and we both agree on this, and I agree with you as well. I thought they looked better against Bama. I thought they were able to generate some rushing ability against Bama, especially off that left side. But ultimately, you zoom out and you see a team that is averaging barely over 4 yards per carry. And it's difficult for me to say, okay, well, we need to lean more on the run game when that has not been efficient. Now, it dovetails into, I think Ches is getting too many carries. You and I are both Ches guys. Mm-hmm. Like, it is what it is. Like, statistically, it's not an efficient enough attack. You got to get different people the ball. That number probably goes up if Yak gets more carries, right? That number probably goes up if Tyree Walker's healthy. That number probably goes up if the 2 freshmen play a little bit more, but it's not been a great rushing attack. So I'm hesitant to say that's going to work going forward. I hope it does, because you and I are in agreement that that's the way they're going to have to win games. And quite frankly, if they can't run the ball efficiently going forward, then they're not going to win many games.
No, that would be really depressing.
All right, let's move on to let's take a quick break. Then we're getting into the category. I don't have a clue. And I got a couple comments from people too. I put this out on Twitter. So we're gonna, between Rajiv and I, throw some of your comments up there as well about the things you believe, the things you're not sure of, and the things you're kind of sure of. That's coming up next on Locked On Badgers. But first, a quick break for our friends of the show over at FanDuel. Again, FanDuel's been with us for a long, long time. Really quickly, Rajiv, who has a great feel for this kind of stuff. How'd you do last weekend?
Really good, actually. Really good. I had 3 big picks: Notre Dame, Indiana, and Oregon, based on recency bias. It's all about the fact that everyone overreacted to what happened the week before, and the lines did that too. Easy wins.
Yeah, Rajiv has got a much better feel for this than I do. If you want to take some of that action, maybe even pick Rajiv's brain a little bit, go over to FanDuel. Also, FanDuel right now is a great offer, something a little different now through September 22nd. All FanDuel customers bet $5 and you get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube TV, so you get to watch all the NFL games. Plus, maybe employ some of Rajiv betting strategy over at FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's America's #1 sportsbook, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, let's get back into this show. I want to throw some of your comments up first and get some of what you are confident in, not confident in, a little in between on. We're going to do that right now. First comment here. I didn't copy everybody's because some of these are too long, and Rajiv knows this. You can only put 200 characters on a StreamYard comment, and sometimes it turns out that's not a lot. This is from Back to Badgers. He said the thing he's not sure of or kind of confident on is I think at best our ceiling is a 5 to 6 win team, which doesn't have a true identity. And then he says the thing he has no clue on. I have absolutely no clue. I have certain players are still being played. I want to go to number 2 on this one. The one he's not sure on, because that was actually the one the one he thinks he knows is a 5 or 6 win ceiling. I had this kind of in my I have no clue on category, which is why I wanted to put this comment up here. My I have no clue was I don't know if we're gonna have a winning record at the end of the year. Rajiv Back to Badgers says 5-6 win ceiling. Where are you at on those two? Mine I have no clue, and this one a 5-6 win ceiling.
I mean, I think you're right at this point. We really don't have a clue. I'd like to think that I know that we're going to make a bowl game, but boy, I mean, there's when you look at the schedule and you look at who we're playing and you look at the way we've been playing, it's tough to see that. I still think the ceiling is a little bit higher because it's me, and I'm going to stick to what I said on the show, on the reaction show. Ceiling is still 8. That's ceiling. That means Braedyn Locke is playing well. That means the defense is being effective. Like, it's 8 wins, but realistically 6-6 is pretty much in line with, I think, what a lot of people are expecting right now. And that's just sadly the reality of what this team looks like.
Yeah, I agree. Chris says, I know they're the Badgers and I love them. I think I know everything. And he says, number 3, I have no clue how to maintain a healthy long-term relationship. Chris, we are here for you to try to dating advice, whatever it is. We are here for you on that one. What's another one of yours that you just have no clue on?
I have no clue what this team's going to look like in 3 years. When I thought, and I think when I say the team, I mean the program. I really thought that I wanted to believe the whole vision of what Longo was going to bring, what Fickell was going to bring, and I still believe in Fickell for sure. But I just have no idea what we're going to look like. Whether we're going to have an offense that's high flying, that we're going to have an offense that looks more like Chris offenses. Whether we're going to switch both coordinators completely and we're going to have a whole new thing, whether we're going to switch head coaches. And I mean, I just felt like I really saw where this program was going. I have no clue what this team looks like in 3 years, and that's depressing.
That's a really good one. Yeah, I have no clue either. Because it feels like confidence has been shaken, right? Like, it feels for the longest time. I have a buddy who's a Jets fan. He's a Mets fan, and he always said, "I'm envious of." And he's also a UConn basketball fan, so he does fine. But he said, "I'm always envious of college or Wisconsin college football because you guys are like a metronome. You're always good. Like you're never not usually great, but you're always good. You always have, no matter what, however the rest of your teams are, you always have one team every year you cheer for that you're going to get satisfaction from, right? And for the longest time, that's been true. And we've been spoiled by it. That's also true. I feels like the confidence for the first time in a long time in the bigger picture foundation for Wisconsin is shaking. Because even when you moved on from Chris, you immediately brought in Luke Fickell, or not immediately, but at the end of the year, and felt like, okay, we're still good. There's no reason to worry. The guy brought Cincinnati to the playoffs, and he's a Midwestern guy, and it's perfect. Yeah, that's a great one, Rajiv, because I agree with you. I don't know either. And it feels, because the first time, gosh, this must have felt like when Rome was falling for a little bit, right? When people were looking up and seeing these great monuments to this society starting to crumble a little bit, and what is the future going to hold here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was on the show or off the show. We were talking about the thing that scares me the most is the floor dropping out on this team. That scares me. We've always been a high floor team. I mean, you look at the stat of 22 consecutive winning records. I mean, we went before the show. We went back 2001. We were 5-7. We haven't been worse than 7-5 since 2001. That's the floor dropping out on this team and becoming a team that sits in the double-digit sort of, position of the Big Ten. I'm out on that. That's something that I'm not okay with. I've always been a guy that Justin and I had a huge discussion about this one week. I'm always been a guy that's I'll take a higher floor, slightly lower ceiling than a lower floor, higher ceiling. I need to have a program that is consistently good, making the tournament every year in basketball, that's making bowl games. I like this kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And the occasional pop to be great. The floor dropping on this team is very scary. And that's where I just feel like I would have paid you anything you would have said when Fickell got hired. I've been like, now the floor's not dropping. We're going to be fine. We're going to be really good. In 3 years, we're on the way up. But now I have no clue.
Yeah, no, it's really well said, man. Let me give you my I have no idea. And we talked about this a little bit, so I don't want to belittle it, but there's one point I want to bring up or belabor it. But there's one extra point I want to bring up. I have no idea why we are so passive on offense. I have no idea. I can't explain it. It hasn't been traditionally Longo's offense. I know people have talked about there's a rift between Longo and Fickell, or potentially like clearly not seeing completely eye to eye. I think that's fair. But Fickell's not a guy that traditionally has wanted super safe offenses either. You go back to 2021 Cincinnati, Desmond Ritter averaged 8.6 yards per attempt. Like my bigger point is Fickell's not an idiot. Like he's not going to come in here and say only 5-yard button hooks. That's how we're going to win against great teams. Like he's smart enough to know that doesn't work. Like, so why? I don't understand why. Why are we so passive? Why are we running into obviously loaded boxes enough so that the announcers are calling it out on TV? They're like, a lot of people in there, another run up the middle. Like, yeah, we can all see it. And then people, and then here's the other thing. Sometimes fans get gaslit. And listen, sometimes fans have it coming. I get it. But sometimes, like people, you'll hear coordinators or coaches talk about, well, you know, we take what the offense gives us and we're winning. I mean, that's kind of what Longo essentially said after week 2. And it's like, fans aren't dumb. Like, we can see you're struggling to score against these teams that you shouldn't be struggling to score against. And we can understand it's probably not going to translate to Bama. And it didn't. Like, stop gaslighting us. So yeah, I have no idea. This is my biggest thing. I have no idea why we're so passive.
Yeah. Gosh, it is really quite depressing. And I mean, you know, that moment, right, when they were talking about loading the box and us just running right into the line. Whoa. It's like it took me back to like the days of the end of the Chris era where I'm just like the announcers were like, what is he doing? And I almost feel like I'm like, damn it, they're doing it again. Like, why are they? It's true though. Like the coaching is so strange sometimes. I've said to you many times, every single game this year, we've got out coached. Yeah, I don't like that trend of just feeling like we're not getting an advantage with coaching, and that is a struggle. And yeah, the offense looking passive is it's ridiculous. Like, I mean, I just feel like when are we going to move on from this and do something different? So my last one is, we talked about it a little bit. I have no clue why the personnel decisions are being made the way they are. I just, and you know what? We probably shouldn't understand because we don't see them in practice every day. They're coaching for a reason, obviously. I just don't understand it. As a fan watching the team, I just can't understand why the young players are not playing more, why they're not just saying, you know what, this isn't working, wholesale change. It might get worse, but it also might get better. And that's the thing that I don't understand. I understand you take a risk when you take away, you think the floor is going to come out when you make personnel decisions. And I get that, but I feel like at this point you have nothing to lose. I mean, what are we playing for? Let's play to figure out what we have in the youth of the program. And it's not just one specific decision. It's across the board. I just don't have a clue in the decisions that are being made.
Yeah, I mostly agree with you. I mean, talked earlier about I want to see some of those linebackers. The one area where I'd say I think, and I made this point on a show, I think it was today's show, where I do at times feel like fans, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but I do at times feel like as soon as fans see a struggle, the instant reaction is play the younger guys. You know, it feels like the instant kind of, I need to see. I've heard people say we need to see Mabry, we need to see this guy and that guy and that guy. And I would caution to say I don't think just throwing young guys in is like the automatic Band-Aid to fix all things, right? I do think there are some issues that are bigger on this team where if you start throwing some young guys in there, it could exasperate it. And you talk about the floor falling out. Like the difference in some of these close games might be a freshman making a wrong read, or it might be but I hear you because we're also seeing the difference in some of these games, veterans making mistakes that they shouldn't be making. So
yeah, and I totally agree with you. And I definitely, for me, what I mean by that is really like the guys that we've seen in action. So 10, 5, 11. Those are Christian Allegro snap counts for the first 3 weeks. 10, then 5, then 11. Now, at the end of last year, Christian Allegro came on the field and was the only linebacker that showed speed last year that could get to the edge and to actually disrupt the play. I'm sorry, but that's one of the things that I'm highlighting in my head when I think about personnel decisions. Why are we not seeing more of him? Maybe he is practicing poorly. I don't know, but why? He literally, every time he comes out there, he does something good or he's in the play. He's certainly not making it worse at all. You got to play him more. that's just one of my examples. And it's really, I agree with you though about the putting any youth out there. I'm not really saying Mabry. I just really feel like Curtis needs to be a starter and playing constantly. Allegro needs to be playing constantly. Dylan Johnson needs to be playing more. Elijah Hills needs to be playing more. Like not all these guys are young, but I want to see guys get out there and give them more of a chance. Let them get the 50 snaps a game and see how things end up.
I think it's very fair. Very good point. It feels like Allegro just like things just happen. Like randomly, he'll just not get blocked, and people are like, "Well, he was unblocked that play." Yeah, you're right. He also took advantage of it. Like I don't know. Like at some point, stop excusing like the good plays and just acknowledge the fact that when he's out there, he makes plays.
You're so right about that and you actually, I said that one time, and you said that back, and I hear you because there are times where like other people will get a free run at the quarterback and they'll just miss, and you don't talk about it because he missed. And I mean, otherwise, like it's just one of those things where, he just doesn't miss on those, and that counts for something.
Yeah, he hits the plays that he needs to hit. But here's the thing: go freeze frame him and Jake Chaney next to each other. Allegro's bigger. Like Allegro's a bigger, stronger, more physical player. Like he just is a different kind of beast. Yeah, I agree with you there. Let me throw a few of these comments up here and we'll wrap the show. We're already at 36 minutes, which is running later than normal. But I did get a couple other comments here, so I wanted to put them up. This is from Scott Winch. I think we know we need to find ways to use young talent, but also keep the locker room. He says his no clue is, I don't know if we're going to make a bowl game. Once again, like Badger fans are shook, and I don't know if he's wrong. This one's from Evan Gabriel. Said, how many? I love this one. His comment was, I have no idea how none of the transfers have worked out to make any real impact. He said, I think it's amazing that not even one has made a real consistent impact in the last 2 years. I would disagree. Pauling has, Renfro obviously has this year, but I think his overall point isn't fully incorrect. The majority of the transfers haven't worked out to, I think, the degree that we had hoped. You think about the Darian Varners, you think about the quarterbacks, you think about Tyrell Henry, you think about Griffin as a receiver, you think about Brandon Lane.
Petrowski, yeah. I mean,
Petrowski for sure. Like there's been, the hit rate hasn't been as high as we'd hoped. CJ Williams at this point, if you had showed us this is CJ Williams stats through the first year and 3 games of his career, you would be disappointed as well. I think his overall point is correct here.
Yeah, you're right about there's definitely a few. Tackett Curtis is probably going to be one that looks like it's going to work out. But yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to an earlier point that you made about the transfer portal in general. Like the success of the transfer portal isn't really isn't really what people expected it to be. Yeah, it's a very fair point, and I hope that improves because the transfer portal is not going anywhere, and we need to be capitalizing on it.
You know what the other lesson here is, Rajiv, is I don't think the lesson is necessarily. I think there's an element of you have to build a certain way through high school recruiting. I think there's also a lesson of you have to be better at evaluating transfer talent, because you look at some of the top 10 transfer, these guys, the top 10 impact guys, there's dudes out there making incredible differences on new programs. So it's not that the portal isn't it. It's that maybe we haven't done a great job of identifying fits and talent. And sometimes in the portal, you just start grabbing things almost like it's almost like a shopping spree, and you have a minute in the grocery store. And
fill the room. Yeah.
Instead of getting like the steak and potatoes to feed your family, you come home with Skittles and graham crackers. And you're like, well, these are great things, but like I get those anyway.
Well, I mean, and NIL does play a role in that, right? There's that piece of it we have to factor in. You can't, like there's other programs where a lot of those big hits are happening. Maybe there's NIL money that attributed to that too. So,
all right, we're gonna wrap it there. I had a few more comments, but we're getting up to around 40 minutes, and that's a late show. As always appreciate when G jumps on. Really good friend of mine, one of the sharpest people I know. And go check out his work over at Bucky Report, obviously at Rajiv Badgers as well. On Wisconsin, we will talk tomorrow. A bunch of content coming up this week as I'm out in Hawaii, which is why I am recording in this weird place. But as always, appreciate everybody tuning in. Love you all so much. On Wisconsin, we'll talk tomorrow.